The scent of lemon oil and old wood filled my lungs as I ran my fingers along the edge of my grandmother's writing desk. 3 months since her funeral, and I still couldn't bring myself to move it from the cottage. Every scratch and water ring told a story. 50 years of letters written, bills paid, and quiet moments spent gazing out at the Atlantic. I'd spent the morning polishing every inch of mahogany until it gleamed, as if caring for her things could somehow keep her with me. Ridiculous, maybe, but it was all I had left. My phone buzzed. Another Instagram notification. I ignored it and kept working, focusing on the way sunlight caught in the grain of the wood. The cottage had become my sanctuary since Gran died, the one place where memories felt like comfort rather than daggers. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. Jesus Christ, I muttered, finally reaching for it. Probably Blair with another just checking in message. She'd appointed herself my unofficial grief counselor since the funeral. It wasn't Blair. My stomach dropped as I stared at the screen. A diamond the size of a small planet sparkled on a perfectly manicured hand. Vanessa's hand. Surprise! She said, "Yes! Can't wait to start forever with my soulmate." Engaged, one blessed, one's future Mrs. Gomez. 78 likes already. Comments flooding in with congratulations. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Philip Gomez. The real estate developer she'd been dating for, 6 months? The one she'd sworn was just a fling the last time we'd had lunch. The same lunch where she'd squeezed my hand across the table and said, "I'm so sorry about your grandmother, Cynthia. You know I'm here for you, whatever you need." I walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, waves crashed against the shoreline, rhythmic and eternal. Gran had left me this cottage, this slice of oceanfront heaven, along with her antique business. Both felt like life preservers in the storm that followed her death. My phone rang. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, working to keep my voice neutral. "Cynthia, did you see? Did you see?" Her voice bubbled with excitement. "I saw. Congratulations." I swallowed hard. "The ring is beautiful. 8 carats. Can you believe it? Philip designed it himself." She paused, then dropped her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Listen, I wanted you to hear it from me first. We're having the engagement party next weekend. I know it's short notice, but Philip's parents are only in town briefly." Next weekend, the anniversary of Gran's death. "I don't know if I can—" "Please, Sin, you're my oldest friend. I need you there." Her voice softened. "I know things have been hard since your grandmother passed. Maybe this is exactly what you need. A reason to get dressed up, have some champagne, celebrate something happy." The familiar guilt crept in. Vanessa and I had been friends since we were 7, when her family moved in next door. She'd held my hand at my parents' funeral when I was 12. She'd helped me pick out Gran's casket 3 months ago. "I'll try," I said finally. "Perfect. Oh, and wear that blue dress, the one from Sarah's wedding. You looked amazing in it." She paused. "Hey, how's the antique business going? Getting the hang of it?" I glanced at the stack of inventory sheets on Gran's desk. "Slowly. There's so much to learn." "That's why you need me," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Remember when we used to play store in your grandmother's shop? You selling, me handling the money?" I did remember. Vanessa counting out play money, while I carefully wrapped empty boxes in tissue paper. "Actually," she continued, "I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Philip thinks I should branch out professionally. Did I tell you I got my real estate license?" "No, you didn't." "Well, I did. And I was thinking, you have all these amazing pieces, but you're not really a salesperson, Sin. You're too sentimental. What if I helped you? I could list some of the higher-end items, stage them properly. My commission would be minimal, of course." I stared at the desk, at the small drawer where Gran kept her business records. "I don't know, Vanessa. It's still so new to me. Just think about it. We'd make a great team. You have the inventory, I have the connections." Her voice dropped to that sincere tone she used when she really wanted something. Your grandmother would want the business to thrive, right? The mention of Gran made my chest tighten. Right. Perfect. We'll talk more at the engagement party. I have to run. Meeting the wedding planner in 20. Love you. She hung up before I could respond. I set the phone down and pulled open the small drawer in Gran's desk. Inside was her leather-bound ledger, meticulous records of every piece she'd ever sold. Beside it lay a small velvet pouch, the one containing her most treasured possession, a Victorian sapphire ring that had been in our family for generations. I'm saving this for you, she'd told me once, for when you find someone worthy of your heart. My fingers closed around the pouch as Vanessa's words echoed in my mind. You're not really a salesperson, Sin. You're too sentimental. Was she right? Was I too attached to these things? These echoes of the past? I pulled out my phone again and scrolled back to her engagement announcement. The diamond glittered obscenely. Beneath it, I noticed something I'd missed before. The antique gold band it was set in. A band that looked exactly like one Gran had shown me last year. One from her private collection. One that wasn't for sale. I couldn't sleep. The image of that ring haunted me. The delicate scrollwork along the band, the distinctive setting. I'd helped Gran photograph it for her personal inventory just months before she died. At 3 a.m., I gave up and padded downstairs in my worn flannel pajamas. The cottage creaked and settled around me as I made tea in the kitchen, moonlight streaming through the windows. Outside, the ocean whispered against the shore, a sound that had lulled me to sleep since childhood. I carried my mug to Gran's desk and pulled out the old photo album she kept of her most precious pieces. My fingers trembled slightly as I flipped through the pages, past cameos and brooches, pocket watches, and silver snuff boxes. There it was. Page 37. A Victorian gold band with intricate filigree work. In Gran's neat handwriting beneath the photo, Mother's engagement ring, circa 1885. Not for sale. I traced the image with my fingertip. The same ring now housed Vanessa's massive diamond. But how? Gran had kept it in her safe. I'd found it there after she died, along with her will and other valuables. I hadn't cataloged everything yet. The grief still too raw to face some of her most personal items, but I was certain I'd seen it. Unless... I set down my tea so hard it sloshed over the rim. The spare key. Gran had always kept a spare key to the safe in her desk drawer, in case of emergencies. Vanessa knew about it. She'd been there the day Gran showed me where it was hidden. My hands shook as I yanked open the drawer and felt around the back corner. The small key was gone. My phone showed 7:30 a.m. Too early to call anyone, but I couldn't wait. I dialed Blair. Cynthia? Her voice was groggy with sleep. Everything okay? I need to see you. Today, it's important. 2 hours later, I sat across from Blair at her kitchen table, clutching a fresh mug of coffee like a lifeline. Sunlight streamed through her apartment windows, catching the silver in her dark hair. At 42, Blair had been my grandmother's protégé in the antiques business before starting her own appraisal firm. She'd become my mentor too, and the closest thing to family I had left. Show me again, she said, examining the photo I'd brought. I pushed it across the table. It's the same ring. I know it is. Blair studied it, her expression carefully neutral. And you're sure it's missing from the safe? Positive. I checked this morning. She sighed, setting down the photo. Cynthia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Have you been keeping track of the business accounts? The question caught me off guard. I've been trying. There's so much paperwork, and with the funeral and everything. I trailed off, shame heating my face. Blair reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm not judging you. Grief takes time, but I've been hearing things. What things? She hesitated. Rumors that some of your grandmother's more valuable pieces have been appearing at auctions. Pieces that were part of her private collection. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I haven't sold anything from her personal collection. I know you haven't. Blair's eyes met mine, steady and serious. But someone has. The implication hung in the air between us. Vanessa has the spare key to the safe, I said quietly. And yesterday, she offered to help me sell some pieces. Said I was too sentimental to be good at business. Blair's expression hardened. How long has she had access to the shop? Since Gran died, she helped me sort through things, offered to check on the place when I couldn't face going there. My voice cracked. I trusted her. We need to check the inventory against your grandmother's records. Today. 3 hours later, we stood in the back office of Gran's shop, surrounded by ledgers and inventory lists. The more we compared, the worse it got. At least a dozen valuable pieces were missing, pieces I'd never authorized for sale. She's been selling them through a dealer in Boston, Blair said, showing me a listing on her tablet. Using her real estate connections to move them quietly. I stared at the screen, numb with shock. There was Gran's Tiffany lamp, listed as recently acquired from a private estate, the Georgian silver tea service, the Art Deco jewelry box. How much? I finally asked. Based on these prices? At least $200,000 worth. The room seemed to tilt. $200,000. My inheritance, my security, my future. Vanishing piece by piece while I'd been lost in grief. What do I do? My voice sounded strange, distant. Blair closed her tablet. You have options, legal options. She'll say I gave her permission, that I was too overwhelmed to remember. I laughed bitterly. And maybe she's right. Maybe I have been too lost to notice what was happening right in front of me. This isn't your fault, Blair said firmly. Isn't it? I handed her the keys to everything. I picked up a photo of Gran and me at the shop, taken on my 30th birthday last year. Gran trusted me with her legacy, and I've let it slip through my fingers. Blair was quiet for a moment. There might be another way to handle this. What do you mean? Vanessa doesn't know you've discovered what she's done. Blair's eyes met mine. That gives you an advantage. Something shifted inside me, grief making room for something harder, colder. You mean I should play along? Pretend I don't know? Blair nodded slowly. For now, let's see exactly how deep this goes before you decide what to do. I thought of Vanessa's engagement ring, my family heirloom now adorning her finger, of her voice on the phone. You're too sentimental, Sin. Her engagement party is next weekend, I said, my decision crystallizing. I think I'll wear that blue dress after all. The storm rolled in from the Atlantic the night before Vanessa's engagement party, violent and sudden. I stood on the cottage porch, watching lightning split the sky, rain lashing against my face. The wind howled through the dunes, bending seagrass flat against the sand. It matched my mood perfectly. For 5 days, I'd been cataloging my losses. Blair and I had documented everything. 23 pieces missing in total, worth nearly $250,000. Heirlooms and treasures that had passed through my family for generations, now scattered to strangers who had no idea they were buying stolen history. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Vanessa. Don't forget, car service picking you up at 7 tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. I didn't respond. I'd been letting her messages pile up all week, responding just enough to avoid suspicion. Each text made my stomach knot with rage. Another crack of lightning illuminated the beach. In that brief flash, I thought I saw a figure standing near the water's edge. When darkness returned, they were gone, if they'd been there at all. Inside, I pulled out the blue dress Vanessa had suggested. I'd bought it for her cousin's wedding 2 years ago, a night when Vanessa had disappeared for an hour with the best man, then sworn me to secrecy. One of many secrets I'd kept for her over the years. I laid the dress on my bed, smoothing the silk with my palm. Tomorrow, I'd confront her. I'd wait until after the party, get her alone, and demand everything back. I'd threaten legal action if necessary. But as I rehearsed the confrontation in my mind, doubt crept in. Vanessa had always been the stronger one, the one who knew how to twist situations to her advantage. What if she denied everything? What if she turned Philip against me? What if no one believed me? My phone rang, Blair this time. I've been thinking about your approach, she said without preamble. Confronting Vanessa directly might not be your best move. I sank onto the edge of my bed. I can't just let her get away with this. I'm not suggesting that. But think about it. She's been calculating and careful. If you confront her, she'll have a story ready. She'll make you look unstable, still grieving, confused about what your grandmother wanted. The truth of Blair's words stung. So what do I do? Smile and celebrate while she wears my grandmother's ring? For now, yes. Blair's voice softened. Cynthia, you need to be strategic. Vanessa has been playing a long game. You need to do the same. I don't know if I can face her without falling apart. You can, and you will. Blair paused, because you're stronger than she thinks you are. After we hung up, I stared at the dress on my bed. The woman who had bought it, who had kept Vanessa's secrets and sought her approval, felt like a stranger now. I picked up the dress and shoved it deep into my closet. The next evening, I arrived at the engagement party in a black dress I'd found in Gran's closet. Vintage 1960s Givenchy, simple and elegant. The moment I walked into the hotel ballroom, I felt Vanessa's eyes on me. She broke away from a group of admirers and rushed over, champagne sloshing in her glass. Cynthia, you made it! Her eyes flicked over my dress. I thought you were wearing the blue one. This felt more appropriate, I said, forcing a smile. It was my grandmother's. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe even guilt. But it vanished quickly. Well, you look beautiful. Come meet Philip's parents. She looped her arm through mine, pulling me across the room. I let her lead me, hyper-aware of her ring, catching the light. My ring. With each step, I repeated Blair's advice in my head. Watch, listen, learn. The evening passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. I nursed a single glass of champagne, observing Vanessa as she worked the room. She was radiant, confident, a woman who believed she'd gotten away with everything. I was about to step outside for air when I felt a hand on my elbow. You look like you could use an escape route. I turned to find a man I didn't recognize, tall, with dark hair and kind eyes. That obvious? I asked. Only to a fellow escapee. He offered his hand. Fabian, friend of Philip's from college. Cynthia, friend of Vanessa's from a previous life, it seems. He smiled. Ah, one of those friendships. I have a few of those myself. He nodded toward a balcony door. Want to get some air? Outside, the night was clear and cool, the storm having blown itself out overnight. Below us, the hotel garden was lit with fairy lights, empty now except for a couple walking hand in hand along a stone path. So, Fabian said, leaning against the railing. Previous life? I hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. We've been friends since childhood, but lately I'm realizing I might not know her as well as I thought. That's the thing about big life events. They have a way of revealing who people really are. He studied me. You don't seem very celebratory. It's been a difficult year. I heard about your grandmother. I'm sorry. I looked at him sharply. How did you know about that? Philip mentioned it. Said Vanessa's been helping you manage her estate. He must have noticed my expression change because he added, Did I say something wrong? Before I could answer, the balcony door opened. Vanessa stood there, her diamond, my diamond, catching the light. There you are. Philip's about to make a toast. Her eyes darted between Fabian and me, a flash of calculation crossing her face. I see you've met Fabian. He's helping us with the villa renovation. Villa? I asked. Didn't I tell you? We're buying a property on the coast, a little vacation home. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Actually, it's not far from your cottage. We should be neighbors by summer. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The missing antiques. The money. Her sudden interest in real estate. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was funding her dream home with my inheritance. How wonderful, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I'd love to hear more about it. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. Of course. But first, champagne and toasts. As she disappeared back inside, Fabian touched my arm gently. Are you okay? You've gone pale. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Actually, I think I just figured something out. In that moment, I knew confrontation wouldn't be enough. If I wanted justice, if I wanted to truly make Vanessa understand what she'd done, I would need to beat her at her own game. A villa by the sea, I said, pacing Blair's office the next morning. She's literally buying a house with my money, next to my cottage. Blair watched me from behind her desk, her expression grim. The audacity is almost impressive. Ah, it's sick is what it is. I stopped at the window, staring out at the busy street below. Monday morning traffic crawled by, people rushing to jobs and lives that hadn't been upended by betrayal. And I smiled through it, clinked glasses while Philip toasted to new beginnings that my grandmother is unknowingly funding. Did you learn anything else useful? I turned back to Blair. The property they're buying, it's the old Harrington place. 3 acres, private beach access. Been abandoned for years. That's a multi-million-dollar property, even in disrepair. Exactly. And guess who's handling the sale? I didn't wait for her answer. Vanessa, her first major real estate deal. Blair's eyebrows rose. So she gets the commission on top of everything else. And Fabian, the guy I met at the party, he's the architect designing the renovation. Apparently, they're gutting the place, turning it into some Mediterranean-style monstrosity. I sank into the chair across from Blair. She kept talking about how perfect it would be for entertaining, for building their social circle. All the things she knows I don't care about. It sounds like she's creating the life she always wanted, Blair said quietly, with my family's legacy as the down payment. I pressed my fingers to my temples, fighting a headache. I need to stop her, Blair, not just get back what she took, but make sure she can't do this to anyone else. Blair studied me for a long moment. There might be a way. It's not straightforward, and it's not without risk. I'm listening. The Harrington property hasn't closed yet. These deals take time, inspections, financing, paperwork. She leaned forward. What if someone else made a better offer? I stared at her. You mean me? I can't afford that place. Not alone, no. But what if you had a partner, an investor who remained anonymous? Who would do that? A knock at the door interrupted us. Blair glanced at her watch. That would be Scott. The man who entered wasn't what I expected. Mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses, he looked more like a professor than whatever I'd imagined Blair's mysterious contact to be. Cynthia, this is Scott Henderson. He specializes in complex financial situations. Scott shook my hand, his grip firm. Blair's told me about your predicament. I might be able to help. For the next hour, Scott outlined a plan so audacious it made my head spin. Using a shell company, we would make a competing offer on the Harrington property, higher than what Vanessa and Philip had offered, but with contingencies that would drag out the process. The goal isn't necessarily to buy the property, Scott explained. It's to create pressure, delay tactics. Meanwhile, we document everything Vanessa's sold and build a case. Why would you help me? I asked. What's in it for you? Scott and Blair exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. Let's just say I have my reasons for wanting to see justice done, Scott said finally, and I have the resources to make it happen. After he left, I turned to Blair. Can we trust him? I've known Scott for 15 years. He's complicated, but honorable in his way. She hesitated. There's something else you should know. The Harrington property, it's not just valuable because of its location. There's been talk of rezoning that stretch of coastline for commercial development. My stomach dropped. Commercial? You mean like hotels? Resorts? Blair nodded. If that happens, property values would skyrocket. A smart investor could make a fortune. And Vanessa would know this through her real estate connections. The pieces clicked into place. That's why she's so fixated on that specific property. It's not just about having a vacation home near me to rub in my face. It's about making millions when the rezoning happens. Most likely. I stood up, suddenly restless. I need to see it, the property. An hour later, I parked my car on the side of the coastal road and walked down the overgrown path to the Harrington house. It sat on a bluff overlooking the ocean, about a mile from my cottage. Once grand, now weathered by decades of neglect, its bones were still beautiful. Victorian architecture with intricate woodwork and a wraparound porch. I circled the property, staying far enough away to avoid trespassing. From the back, the view was breathtaking. Uninterrupted ocean as far as the eye could see. The same view I cherished from my cottage, but from a higher vantage point. A sound made me turn. A car had pulled up behind mine on the road. Fabian stepped out, looking surprised to see me. "Cynthia? What are you doing here?" I thought quickly. "Just taking a walk. I live nearby, remember?" "Right." He approached, hands in his pockets. "Beautiful spot, isn't it?" "It is." I gestured toward the house. "You're redesigning this?" "Trying to. Philip wants Mediterranean. Vanessa wants modern coastal. Classic client conflict." He smiled ruefully. "What would you do with it?" The question caught me off guard. "Me? I'd restore it. Keep its character. These old houses have stories to tell." Fabian studied me with interest. "That's what I said. But apparently, history doesn't sell as well as infinity pools and home theaters. Some things are worth preserving." "I agree." He hesitated. "Listen, I'm heading into town for coffee. Would you like to join me? I could use a break from measuring and sketching." I almost declined, then reconsidered. Fabian was close to Philip and Vanessa. He might know things, useful things. I'd like that. Over coffee, Fabian talked about his work, his move to the area 6 months ago, his passion for historic preservation. I found myself genuinely enjoying his company, almost forgetting why I'd agreed to come, until he mentioned the rezoning. "It's not public knowledge yet," he said, lowering his voice, "but it's why Philip is so set on buying that property now, before prices explode. Vanessa found out through her broker connections." "And when will this rezoning happen?" I kept my tone casual. "The vote's in 3 months. If it passes, that whole coastline could become the next big tourist destination." He shook his head. "Personally, I hate the idea. All that natural beauty turned into condos and gift shops." I thought of my cottage, of the peaceful shoreline I'd walked my entire life, of Gran, who'd loved that stretch of coast so fiercely she'd made me promise never to sell. "That can't happen," I said, more to myself than to Fabian. He studied me across the table. "You really care about this place, don't you?" "It's my home. It's—" I struggled to explain. "It's all I have left." Something shifted in his expression. Understanding. Maybe even admiration. "Then maybe you should fight for it." As I drove home, his words echoed in my mind. Fight for it. Not just my stolen antiques or my grandmother's ring, but everything they represented. My history, my future, my place in the world. I pulled out my phone and called Scott. "I'm in," I said when he answered. "Whatever it takes. Let's do this." 2 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and clandestine meetings. Scott created Ocean View Holdings, LLC, a shell company with me as the silent partner, and submitted an offer on the Harrington property that exceeded Vanessa and Phillips by $50,000. The trap was set. Now we waited. I spent my days at Grand's shop, meticulously documenting every missing piece. Nights found me at the cottage, poring over property records and zoning laws until my eyes burned. The work kept me focused, kept the rage from consuming me entirely, until Savannah showed up unannounced on my doorstep. "You're avoiding me," she said, brushing past me into the cottage without waiting for an invitation. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she carried a bottle of wine in one hand. "I've called you 6 times in the last week." I closed the door behind her, scrambling to hide the Harrington property documents spread across the coffee table. "I've been busy." "Too busy for your friends?" She set the wine down and turned to face me, arms crossed. "Vanessa says you've been acting weird since the engagement party. Distant. Now I see she's right." The mention of Vanessa's name sent a jolt through me. "You've been talking to her about me?" "Of course I have. We're worried about you, Sin." Savannah's expression softened. "I know this year has been hell, Your grandmother, the business. It's a lot for anyone to handle. But shutting people out isn't the answer. I bit back the words that threatened to spill out. Savannah had been my friend almost as long as Vanessa had. We'd been a trio since middle school. Vanessa the bold one, Savannah the peacemaker, me somewhere in between. But I had no idea where Savannah's loyalties truly lay. I'm not shutting people out, I said carefully. I'm just figuring things out. Savannah sighed and headed for the kitchen. Well, figure it out with wine. I'll get glasses. As she rummaged through my cabinets, I quickly gathered the papers and shoved them into a drawer. When she returned, I forced a smile and accepted the glass she offered. So, she said, settling onto the couch, what's really going on? And don't say nothing, because I've known you too long to buy that. I took a sip of wine, buying time. Have you ever thought you knew someone completely, only to discover you never really knew them at all? Savannah studied me. This is about Vanessa, isn't it? My heart skipped. What makes you say that? Because I'm not blind, Cynthia. I saw your face at the engagement party when she was showing off that ring. She leaned forward. And I know that ring was your grandmother's. The wine glass nearly slipped from my fingers. You know, your grandmother showed it to me once, years ago. Said it would be yours someday. Savannah's eyes held mine. So either you gave it to Vanessa, which I doubt, or she took it, which makes me wonder what else she might have taken. The dam broke. Words poured out of me. The missing antiques, the money, the villa, the rezoning plan. Savannah listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to shock to anger. That bitch, she whispered when I finished. I knew she could be selfish, but this is criminal. Relief washed over me. She believed me. I'm going to stop her, Sav. I have a plan. I told her about Scott, about Ocean View Holdings, about our counteroffer on the property. As I spoke, something in her expression changed. A flicker of doubt, maybe even fear. Sin, this sounds extreme, dangerous even. She set down her wine. Why not just go to the police? With what proof? Most of the antiques are gone, sold to private collectors. It would be my word against hers. I shook my head. This way, I can force her hand, make her reveal what she's done. And then what? You think she'll just confess, return everything, and you'll all go back to normal? Savannah stood up, pacing the small living room. This isn't like you. The Cynthia I know doesn't plot revenge. The Cynthia you knew didn't understand how cruel the world could be. My voice hardened. Vanessa stole more than things from me, Sav. She stole my trust, my security. She's trying to steal my home. And you're becoming just like her to fight back. Savannah's words hit like a slap. Look at yourself, Sin. Secret companies, anonymous investors, elaborate schemes. You're turning into everything you claim to hate about her. I stood up, anger flaring. So I should just let her win? Let her profit from destroying my life? Of course not. But there has to be a better way than this. This obsession. She gestured at the cottage around us. You've barely left this place in months. When was the last time you did anything that wasn't about Vanessa or your grandmother's things? The question caught me off guard. I couldn't remember. This isn't healthy, Savannah continued, gentler now. And it's not what your grandmother would want for you. You don't know what she'd want, I snapped, instantly regretting my tone. Savannah flinched. Maybe not. But I know she loved you more than any antique or property. And I know she'd hate seeing you like this, consumed by bitterness, isolating yourself from everyone who cares about you. She gathered her purse, heading for the door. Whatever you decide to do about Vanessa, just don't lose yourself in the process. That would be giving her more power than any stolen heirloom. After she left, I stood in the silent cottage, her words echoing in my mind. Was she right? Was I becoming something unrecognizable in my quest for justice? My phone buzzed with a text from Scott. Offer accepted. Meeting with seller tomorrow at 2. Game on. I stared at the message, a strange mixture of triumph and dread washing over me. There would be no turning back after tomorrow. Whatever I was becoming, whatever line I was crossing, it was happening now. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. A storm was coming in from the ocean, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, watching the first raindrops hit the pane. "I'm sorry, Gran," I whispered, "but this is the only way I know how to fight." The grand opening of Vanessa's real estate office should have been a small affair, a local business launching in a quiet coastal town. Instead, it was a spectacle: catering, champagne, local press, and a guest list that seemed to include everyone within a 50-mile radius, including me. "You came!" Vanessa's voice carried across the renovated storefront as she spotted me. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, her hair swept into an elegant updo. My grandmother's ring glinted on her finger as she air-kissed my cheek. "I wasn't sure you would." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "Congratulations. Yo, isn't it perfect?" She gestured around the space, all gleaming surfaces and coastal chic decor. A large sign behind the reception desk read, "Schmidt and Associates Luxury Properties," in elegant script. "We're already getting fantastic listings. The market here is about to explode." I thought of the Harrington property, of the counteroffer that had been accepted 2 weeks ago. Vanessa still didn't know who was behind it, only that her sure thing had suddenly become complicated. "Speaking of listings," I said carefully, "how's the villa coming along? Any progress?" A flicker of annoyance crossed her face before her smile reasserted itself. "Just a small delay, nothing we can't handle." She lowered her voice. "Between us, there's another buyer, some investment company making trouble, but Philip's handling it." As if summoned by his name, Philip appeared at her side, champagne flutes in hand. "Cynthia, good to see you." He handed me a glass, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Vanessa says you live near the property we're buying. Perhaps you know something about Ocean View Holdings?" My heart stuttered, but I kept my expression neutral. "Should I?" "Local company, apparently. Very mysterious." He sipped his champagne. "No one seems to know who's behind it." "Sounds intriguing," I said, "but I don't keep up with real estate matters." "No? That's surprising, considering your grandmother's property." Philip's gaze was assessing. "Valuable land, especially with the rezoning proposal. You must have had offers." Before I could respond, Vanessa cut in. "Cynthia would never sell. That cottage is practically a shrine to her grandmother." She laughed lightly, but there was an edge to it. "Isn't that right, Cyn? Sentiment over sense, always." The familiar dismissal stung, but I smiled. "Some things are worth more than money." "Speaking of worth," Philip said, "Vanessa tells me you've been going through your grandmother's inventory. Found anything interesting?" The question wasn't casual. I could feel it, the subtle probing, the fishing for information about what I knew. "Just memories, mostly," I said, "though I did notice some pieces seemed to be missing. I've been meaning to ask if you remember seeing any of them when you helped me sort through things, Vanessa." Her smile froze. "Missing? Like what?" "Oh, some jewelry, a few smaller antiques. Nothing major." I watched her face carefully. "I'm sure they'll turn up." Tension crackled between us, disguised as polite conversation. Philip glanced between us, sensing something but not quite grasping what. "I should mingle," Vanessa said abruptly. "Potential clients everywhere. Philip, why don't you show Cynthia the property listings? Maybe she'll reconsider that cottage after all." She disappeared into the crowd, leaving me with Philip. He guided me toward a display of properties, his hand hovering at my back, but not quite touching me. "Between us," he said quietly, "I've never understood Vanessa's attachment to that particular property. There are better investments along the coast." "Really? She seems quite set on it." "She is." He frowned slightly. "Almost obsessively so, especially since this competing offer came in." I studied him, sensing an opening. "You don't share her enthusiasm?" "Let's just say I'm more flexible in my business approach." He glanced around, then lowered his voice further. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about your grandmother's antiques." My pulse quickened. What about them? Vanessa mentioned you might be interested in selling some pieces. I know a few collectors who pay top dollar, no questions asked. His eyes met mine. Completely confidential, of course. The implication was clear. Philip knew about the stolen antiques. Maybe not that they were stolen, but certainly that they existed and had been sold. And he was offering me the same arrangement. That's very interesting, I said carefully. Though I'm surprised Vanessa would suggest that. She knows how sentimental I am about my grandmother's things. Philip's expression shifted, realizing his mistake. Perhaps I misunderstood. Perhaps. I set down my untouched champagne. If you'll excuse me, I need some air. I pushed through the crowd toward the back door, needing escape. The small courtyard behind the office was empty, string lights twinkling overhead in the early evening darkness. I leaned against the brick wall, breathing deeply. You okay? I startled at the voice. Fabian stood a few feet away, looking concerned. Just needed a break from the schmoozing, I said. He nodded, coming to stand beside me. Not your scene? Not particularly. I glanced at him. Yours either, I'm guessing. I'm here in a professional capacity. Philip's showcasing my designs for the villa renovation. He grimaced slightly. Though that project seems to be in limbo at the moment. Because of the competing offer? That and other complications. He hesitated. Financial ones, I think. I overheard them arguing about it last night. My interest sharpened. What kind of financial complications? Fabian looked uncomfortable. I shouldn't say. Client confidentiality and all that. Of course. I turned to face him fully. But if you knew something was wrong, really wrong, would professional ethics still matter more than doing the right thing? He studied me for a long moment. What's really going on here, Cynthia? Before I could answer, the back door burst open. Vanessa stood there, her perfect composure cracked. There you are, and with Fabian, how cozy. Her voice was brittle. Philip's looking for you, Fabian. Something about the presentation. He glanced between us, then nodded. I should go. He touched my arm briefly before heading inside, leaving me alone with Vanessa. The moment the door closed, her smile vanished. What are you doing? Having a conversation. Is that a problem? With my architect? About financial complications? Her eyes narrowed. I heard you, Cynthia. What game are you playing? I could ask you the same thing. The words escaped before I could stop them, fueled by weeks of suppressed rage. Excuse me? The missing antiques, Vanessa. My grandmother's ring on your finger. The sudden cash for a luxury real estate business. I stepped closer. Did you think I wouldn't notice? She didn't flinch. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, and I think Philip does too, though he was smart enough not to admit it outright. Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. Be very careful, Cynthia. You're making accusations you can't back up. Can't I? I held her gaze. I have inventory lists, documentation, proof. For a split second, fear crossed her face. Then her composure returned. You always were imaginative. But this? This is sad, even for you. She shook her head with exaggerated pity. I know you're still grieving, still struggling to manage on your own, but don't drag me into your delusions. They're not delusions. No? Then why haven't you gone to the police? She smiled coldly. Because you have nothing, and you know it. She turned to go, then paused. Oh, and about the Harrington property? Don't get too attached to the idea of us being neighbors. That competing offer? It's about to disappear, permanently. The threat hung in the air between us as she walked back inside, leaving me alone with the realization that the game had just become infinitely more dangerous. The vinegar scent of fear and determination clung to my clothes as I paced the cottage living room. 3 days since Vanessa's threat, and the world had shifted beneath my feet. Scott had called that morning with news. Someone was digging into Ocean View Holdings, trying to uncover the real owner, trying to find me. We need to move faster, I told Blair over the phone. Vanessa knows something's up, She's getting desperate. That's when people make mistakes, Blair replied. We've almost got everything we need. Just a few more days. But I didn't have a few more days. I could feel it. The momentum building towards something irreversible. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old cottage sent me bolt upright, certain someone was breaking in. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I was done waiting. I showered, dressed in jeans and a simple blue sweater, and drove to the address Scott had given me weeks ago, the real estate office handling the Harrington property sale. The agent, a woman named Diana, greeted me with professional warmth. Ms. Riley, what a surprise! We weren't expecting you until next week's closing. I took a deep breath. I need to see the property today, alone. She hesitated. That's irregular, but I suppose it could be arranged. The current owners have already vacated. An hour later, I stood in the empty great room of the Harrington house, sunlight streaming through dusty windows. The space echoed with possibility, and with ghosts of what Vanessa had planned to do with it. I could almost see the gaudy renovations she described at her engagement party, the ostentatious showcase it would have become. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm outside. We need to talk. Fabian. My heart jumped. I hadn't told anyone I was coming here. He was waiting on the wraparound porch, looking out at the ocean. When he turned, his expression was grave. How did you find me? I asked. Diana called Philip, said the competing buyer was here. He stepped closer. Cynthia, what's going on? Who is Ocean View Holdings? I studied his face, weighing trust against caution. Why do you want to know? Because Philip asked me to find out. He's desperate to secure this property. Fabian ran a hand through his hair. And because I think you're involved somehow, and I'm worried about what might happen when they figure that out. Why would you be worried about me? Because I've seen how Vanessa operates, how she manipulates people, and because— He hesitated. Because I care what happens to you. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. In the weeks since we'd met, Fabian had become something unexpected. Not quite a friend, not quite something more, but a presence that made me question my single-minded focus on revenge. It's me, I said finally. I'm Ocean View Holdings, or part of it anyway. His eyes widened. You're the competing buyer. But why? Because Vanessa stole from me. Once I started, I couldn't stop. The whole story poured out. The antiques, the ring, the money, everything. Fabian listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from shock to understanding. I knew something was off, he said when I finished. The way they suddenly had cash for this place. The way Vanessa avoided questions about financing. He shook his head. But I had no idea it was this bad. Now you know why I need this to work. Why I need to stop her. He was quiet for a moment. What are you planning to do? Force a confrontation. Make her admit what she's done. I looked out at the ocean, at the view so similar to the one from my cottage. I thought buying this place out from under her would do it, but now I'm not sure that's enough. It won't be, Fabian said quietly. She'll just find another way, another target. He was right. The realization settled over me like a weight. This wasn't just about getting back what was mine anymore. It was about stopping Vanessa from doing this to someone else. I need proof, I said. Something concrete that shows what she's done. Fabian hesitated. I might be able to help with that. Philip asked me to look at some antiques they're storing, pieces they're planning to sell to finance the renovations if the deal goes through. My heart raced. My antiques? Possibly. They're in a storage unit near the marina. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of a padlocked door. I have the address and the code. 2 hours later, we stood in front of the storage unit, my hands trembling as Fabian entered the code. The metal door rolled up with a rattling groan, revealing stacks of furniture and boxes. The musty scent of old wood and fabric wafted out. I stepped inside, heart pounding. There, in the back corner, stood my grandmother's Chippendale secretary desk, the Georgian silver tea service, The Tiffany lamp. Pieces I'd thought were gone forever, sold to anonymous collectors, were here, hidden away, waiting to be liquidated for Vanessa's next venture. Oh my God, I whispered, running my fingers over the smooth wood of the desk. They're all here. Fabian looked stunned. You were right. About everything. I pulled out my phone, documenting each piece, matching them against the inventory list I'd compiled. This is it. This is the proof I need. As we worked, cataloging everything, a plan formed in my mind. Not just to reclaim what was mine, but to make Vanessa face what she'd done. Truly face it, in a way she couldn't deny or manipulate her way out of. I need to confront her, I said. Tonight. Fabian looked concerned. Is that safe? Maybe we should just call the police now? No, I need to see her face when she realizes it's over. I met his eyes. Will you help me? He hesitated only a moment before nodding. What do you need me to do? Get her to the Harrington house tonight. Tell her you have information about Ocean View Holdings, something she needs to hear in person. I took a deep breath. I'll handle the rest. As the sun began to set, I returned to the Harrington house alone. I placed my grandmother's ledger on the dusty mantelpiece, set up the photos I'd taken of the storage unit on my tablet, waited in the gathering darkness, listening to the waves crash against the cliffs below. At 8:17, headlights swept across the windows. Car doors slammed. Voices approached. Vanessa's sharp and demanding. Fabian's lower, calmer. The front door opened. Vanessa stepped into the great room, her silhouette framed by the dying light. What is this about, Fabian? Why couldn't you just tell me at the... She stopped abruptly when she saw me. Cynthia? What are you doing here? I stepped forward, into the last shaft of sunlight cutting across the room. Hello, Vanessa, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I think it's time we talked about what you took from me. Vanessa's laugh cut through the room, brittle and sharp. What I took from you? What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I moved to the mantelpiece and picked up Grand's ledger. $237,000 worth of antiques, my grandmother's ring, my trust. Her expression flickered between confusion and calculation. Behind her, Fabian quietly closed the door. You've lost your mind, she said, but uncertainty crept into her voice as she glanced at the ledger in my hands. Storage Unit 47B at Coastal Marina? I watched her face pale. That's where you've been keeping what you couldn't sell yet. Did you think I'd never find out? I don't know what you're talking about, she insisted, but her hand moved unconsciously to twist the ring on her finger. My grandmother's ring. Stop lying, Vanessa. It's over. I set the ledger down and picked up my tablet, turning it to show her the photos we'd taken. Every piece is documented, every theft recorded. She stared at the images, her composure cracking. You broke into our storage unit? That's illegal. You can't prove those things are yours. Actually, I can. My grandmother kept meticulous records. I tapped the ledger. Serial numbers, provenance, purchase dates, everything. So what? Her voice hardened as she shifted strategies. It's your word against mine. And who do you think people will believe? The grieving granddaughter who's been hiding in that cottage for months, or the successful businesswoman building a future for this community? It's not just my word. I nodded toward Fabian. And it's not just the antiques. It's the money you've been funneling from my accounts. The commissions you collected selling pieces that weren't yours to sell. Vanessa's eyes darted to Fabian, then back to me. You're working with her? After everything Philip and I have done for you? Fabian didn't flinch. I'm doing what's right. Right? She laughed again, harsher this time. What's right is subjective, Fabian. What's smart is objective. And this? She gestured between us. This isn't smart. Neither was stealing from me, I said quietly. I didn't steal from you. She stepped closer, dropping her voice. I helped you. You were drowning after your grandmother died, paralyzed by grief. Someone had to take control, make decisions. By emptying my safe, selling family heirlooms? Those things were just sitting there, collecting dust. I put them to use. Her eyes gleamed with something like righteousness. Everything I did for us. For our future. Our future? I repeated incredulously. Yes! The rezoning, the development. It's going to transform this backwater town. We could have been at the center of it all. She gestured expansively. You in your cottage with your precious memories. Me building something that actually matters. Both of us winning. The casual cruelty of her worldview stunned me. In her mind, she hadn't betrayed me. She'd simply made a business decision. My inheritance, my history, my trust, all just assets to be leveraged. You really don't see anything wrong with what you did, do you? What I see is opportunity, what I've always seen. She softened her voice, adopting the tone she'd used to convince me of so many things over the years. It's not too late, Sin. We can still make this work. The rezoning vote is coming up. With your land and this property, we'd control the most valuable stretch of coastline in the county. And all I have to do is forget you stole from me? Betrayed me? I prefer to think of it as reallocating underutilized resources. She smiled, almost genuine. Come on, Sin. We've been friends our whole lives. Are you really going to throw that away over some old furniture and a ring? For a moment, I saw us as children, playing in Gran's shop, sharing secrets, promising to be friends forever. The weight of that history pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then I looked at her hand, at my grandmother's ring, and clarity washed over me like the tide. You're right about one thing, I said. We have been friends our whole lives. That's why this hurts so much. I stepped closer. But friendship isn't ownership, Vanessa. It isn't control. And it certainly isn't theft. I held out my hand. The ring. Now. Her fingers closed protectively over it. Philip gave this to me. With a diamond he bought, set in a band you stole. I didn't lower my hand. Your choice, Vanessa. Give it back willingly, or I call the police and they take it as evidence. Something in my voice must have convinced her. Slowly, reluctantly, she worked the ring off her finger and dropped it into my palm. The familiar weight of it, the connection to Gran, to my history, sent a wave of emotion through me. The police won't do anything, she said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. It'll be embarrassing, that's all. Maybe. I closed my fingers around the ring. Or maybe they'll be very interested in the paper trail Blair and Scott have been building. The fraudulent sales, the misappropriated funds, the forged signatures. Her eyes widened at Scott's name. Scott Henderson? You're working with Scott? You know him? A bitter laugh escaped her. Everyone in real estate knows Scott. He's been trying to block the coastal rezoning for years. His environmental foundation owns half the protected wetlands south of here. She shook her head in disbelief. He used you to get to me. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Scott had never mentioned an environmental foundation, never explained his true interest in stopping Vanessa. But it didn't matter. Whatever Scott's motives, mine remained clear. The difference is, I know he was using me, I said. I never knew you were. I walked to the window, looking out at the darkening ocean. The same view I'd grown up with, the same waves that had witnessed generations of my family. I'm buying this property, I said, turning back to her, not to develop it, to preserve it. And I'm voting against the rezoning next month. You're making a mistake, she said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. No. For the first time in a long time, I'm making my own choice. I met her eyes. You have until tomorrow to return everything you took. After that, I go to the police. And if I do return everything, what then? Then we're done. No charges, no public scandal. I held her gaze. But no friendship either. That's gone. She stared at me for a long moment, searching for weakness, for the old Cynthia who could be manipulated and controlled. She didn't find her. You've changed, she said finally. Yes, I agreed. I have. After they left, Vanessa silent and seething, Fabian with a quiet promise to check on me later, I stood alone in the empty house. The ring felt warm in my palm, a small piece of my history reclaimed. I walked onto the porch, breathing in the salt air. Below, waves crashed against the shore, eternal and unchanging. The same waves that had witnessed my grandmother's life, and her mother's before her. The same waves that would continue long after I was gone. I slipped the ring onto my finger, not on my left hand as an engagement ring, but on my right, a symbol of my heritage and my strength. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for me all along. In the distance, a light glowed from my cottage window, warm and welcoming against the gathering darkness. Not a shrine to the past, as Vanessa had called it, but a foundation for whatever came next. I closed the Harrington house door behind me and walked toward home, toward the future I would build on my own terms. The path was dark, but I knew every step by heart.